Vietnam has recently become a hotspot for retirees and digital nomads, while the country of Georgia has seemed to fall out of favor with nomads. But should you blindly move to Vietnam, or is Georgia a better fit for you? I'm going to cover the differences between both countries, some of the things you can expect from them, and who I think should move to them. If you're unaware of who I am, I'm Marcus. I've lived in 5 different countries. I spent 3 years living in Georgia. I also own property in Georgia, and I've spent almost a year living in Vietnam, which is currently where I reside. Let's talk about the differences between the countries when it comes to visas, and they're very different. The Republic of Georgia has a 365-day free visa. Now what that means is if you're Canadian, American, Australian, any of the Tier A passports, even some Tier B passports, you're going to be able to just walk straight into the country. You don't need to fill out any paperwork or do anything. Now you might be thinking, well, what happens if I want to stay longer than just a year? Well, it's pretty simple actually. You just need to leave the country. And the most convenient way to do it is you basically get a private driver, cost you about $40 to $50. They'll drive you to Armenia. It's approximately 3 hours drive from what I remember. And you cross the border. And then as you cross the border, you say hi to all of the police officers. You come straight back into Georgia. They'll stamp you, done and dusted, and you drive back to your house. It is one of the most simple visas you can ever get. And did I mention that it is free? So there's no cost required except for you having to get the transport to leave the country and come back. Now let's talk about Vietnam. One of the big problems with Vietnam is you have to do visa runs every 90 days. Now if you work here, it's a little bit different, but most people aren't going to be working here in terms of in the country itself. So you're going to need to leave every 90 days. Now, how do you do that? So you have a couple of options. It depends on the city that you live in. A lot of people do the bus run. So you can basically go on a bus, you sit on the bus for 15 hours, 25 hours, however long. You go across a border to either Cambodia or Laos or one of those places, and then you come back. And it'll probably cost you, it depends on which city you're coming from, but $100 to $200 depending on the location. Now, if that sounds like a pain, which it is, because I actually have created a whole video of doing a 24-hour bus run, which you can watch right here, or watch it after this. But you can actually go on a plane. Now, the plane's a little bit different. So what you're going to do is, for me personally, I live in a place called Nha Trang or Nha Trang, which is how it's pronounced. And what I do is I just pay $50 to $70 for a round trip ticket to Kuala Lumpur, depending on the price. And then I will go there for a day. And if you want, you can pay a rushed visa, which basically means that you pay a fee to get the visa done as quick as possible. So you can actually just go sit in the airport for a couple of hours and come straight back. But I like to go to Kuala Lumpur and spend the night there, and then I come back. For me, it's a mini holiday and a bit of a break from Vietnam, so I love it, but it is quite inconvenient. Now, are there talks of retiree visas and golden visas? Yeah, sure. Is it going to happen tomorrow? Probably not, so I wouldn't bank on it. And just to add to this, there is a golden visa program for Georgia, but I didn't add it because most of you that are watching this channel are going to have visa-free access anyway. Now let's talk about cost of living. So I just want to get this out of the way first, before you say anything. You can live in both countries for $1,000 a month US. 100%, you can do that. But there is a few key differences. Let's start with Georgia. Georgia has gotten a lot more expensive, like the rest of the world. When the war started in Ukraine, the rents rose dramatically, and if you're unaware of Georgia, it is besides Russia, and once the war started, a lot of Russians fled their country and moved to Georgia. A lot of them have moved on to places such as where I'm at now, so the prices have gone down, but daily goods such as food has stayed pretty high. So comparably to what it used to be a couple of years ago, it has gotten quite a bit more expensive. Your dollar isn't going as far, as well as the lari was strengthening a lot during this time. Now things have changed a little bit for reasons that I'm actually going to get to later in this video, but the prices have decreased. Probably the lowest budget I'd live on in Georgia is $1,000 a month. you'd be decently comfortable. You're not going to be living as a king, but rent is actually rather affordable right now. Now let's talk about Vietnam. For a place such as the city I live in, it's very cheap for accommodation and food. Pretty much everything, with the exception of international food, which is what you'd expect. You can get a studio apartment here on a month, you can spend about $120 US. Now, are you going to be in the exact tourist center? No, but you're not going to be far away from it. I actually live in an apartment right now which has beautiful views of the beach, about 50 meters away, 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom, and I believe it's about $320 US a month. I have a video on that also on my channel, which you can check out just here if you'd like to see that. Food over here is going to cost you $2 for a local meal. A more Western meal can cost between $5 to $10. And now in both countries, you've got touristy areas. Of course, you can spend a lot more money. I mean, that's obvious. But if you're paying the normal prices, you can actually live rather well here for, if you were to say $1,000, you're living a lot better here for $1,000 than you are living in Georgia. Now let's talk about Georgia. More specifically, Tbilisi, which is the capital, which is where I lived. The weather is the best in the world. You've got all 4 seasons. It never gets freezing cold. Occasionally snows for maybe a day or 2, 3 days, but it's very light. It's always pretty much sunny. It never really rains. Maybe it rains 10, 20 days a year. So you are looking at the best weather in the world. Now, come to Vietnam. Let's say to the place where I live in Nha Trang. It is hot here. It is always hot. It is always humid. I've heard people say that it gets cold. It does not get cold here. There's no way it gets cold here. It's always hot. Does it get cool? Sure. But that's in the rainy season, such as where I'm at. It is cooling down, but that's because you get acclimatized to such insane heats. Now, this is pretty much for the past, I'd say 5 to 6 months. It has been about 33 to 35 degrees a day, and that is in Celsius. I will put the conversions just here for my American viewers. And the humidity sits at between, I'd say on average, about 75%. It's not unusual for it to get to 90, 95%. It is sticky and it is hot. It is rather unforgiving. Now let's talk about healthcare. Georgia, the healthcare is not good. It's simple as that. I've actually already covered this in other videos. Sorry to bombard you with other videos. I have a whole video of what happened to my best friend when she got sick. You can check on that video. And I've also gone through the healthcare system in Georgia, basically to make it as simple as possible, if you are wondering. When I got sick, I got severe food poisoning in Georgia. There was a bunch of meat which was contaminated, and I used to go to a very high-end butcher to pretty much avoid these issues. But I was one of those unlucky cases that did get the contaminated meat. I ended up in hospital and went to the whole through process. And basically, they decided that they thought that they wanted to check me for STDs or STIs. They basically told me it's because I was standing outside for too long in the cold. Like, really? They sent me through like this, all these crap, and I just ended up leaving, right? And I can't remember how much money it was, 2,000 lari later with no answers. That's pretty much the healthcare. Now, did I have a bad experience? Sure, but I've never really heard of good experiences. Vietnam, the healthcare is much better. I haven't had anything serious happen to me, but I have gone to the dentist, and I've heard of other expats which have used the services here. They're very good, they're very cheap. Now, are they going to be to complete world-class standards such as Malaysia? Of course not. But for the value you're getting, it's actually rather good. Now, Beaucracy. Beaucracy / ease of doing business. I'm going to make something very clear here. This is kind of an iffy one, just for the fact that when I'm talking about Georgia, when you're dealing with the government and government services, which is specifically what I'm talking about, it's the most simple country to get anything done. It's very easy. If you want a bank account, just get your passport, show it to them. They'll make you sign a piece of paper. And then in 2 days' time, you will have a bank account in US dollars, Georgian lari, which is their currency, British pounds, and euros. That's it. It's one of the best banking systems in the world. Now, in terms of Vietnam, if you want to set up a bank account, it's not that simple. You have some restrictions, so you can't actually do things like you normally would with a normal bank card, right? You can use the scan options, but you can't physically take money out. It's kind of a bit of a process. Now, are there ways to get around it, especially if you own a business or something? Yes, but it is not simple. Now, when it comes to dealing with other things such as the government, if you're setting up a business in Georgia, it is simple. The tax is extremely low. The tax is 1%, you can get it down to 1%. 0% if you've got personal income tax and it's foreign sourced income, so if money is coming from overseas at 0%. Vietnam is much higher. And in terms of setting up a business and stuff, I know a couple of friends that have set up businesses here. They say it's absolute bureaucratic nightmare. It takes forever to do. So that is a huge difference between both countries. So if you're looking to set up a business, definitely Georgia is much better and it is a lot easier to do stuff like that. Now let's talk about safety. Georgia is safer than Vietnam. For me personally, there is no if or buts. Do they drive like crazy in Georgia? Yes. Do they drive as bad as in Vietnam? Definitely not. Vietnam, it is scary on the roads here. High death rate from motorcycle accidents, bus accidents, truck accidents, etc.
All right, well, this is our bus after the accident.
But in terms of day-to-day, like actual serious crimes, both countries are very safe. Is there petty crime in both? Yes. I'd say that there's more petty crime in Vietnam than there is in Tbilisi, Georgia. But the big problem with Georgia is the protests. And now, when I lived in Georgia, I probably heard of or saw about 100 to 200 protests in the 3 years that I lived there. Protesting is normal in Georgia. But the thing that you need to understand is it always happens on the same road. It's not going to interfere with your day. Just when they're doing it, like I'm pretty sure they're protesting right now as we speak, but they just stick to outside a Parliament building. It won't bother you. So I wouldn't worry about it at all. If you worry about what direction the country is going in, that's a completely different subject, which I'm not going to get into. But that is something you shouldn't be concerned about. Now, in terms of Vietnam, with how people say, oh, communist country, etc., I've never had any issues here. People leave you alone. As long as you're respectful, you're kind, you go about your day, you're never going to have any issues. People don't bother me. So safety in both countries is actually very good. So let's talk about the food. The food cuisines are very different. If you like very light foods, so Vietnamese is very light, lots of vegetables, not much meat. Food's cheap, you can get a sandwich bread called a banh mi for $1 to $2. $2 is a very high price. Bowl of pho for $1. You can get beef stir fry for $1.50, $2. Everything's kind of running around $1 to $3. Now, going on to the opposite end, Georgia's cuisine is very heavy. Bread, cheese, butter. These are the things you're going to expect. They have hachapuri, which is big cheese boat, and you can get these things on like these little bakeries, and you can get a cheap one for $1 to $3 if you're really pushing it. And they have other things, but it's lots of bread. So labiani, which is basically like bread and beans, and you have such things such as ostri, like a beef stew. They're the things you're expecting, and the prices can fluctuate quite dramatically on them, and portion size. So between $1 to, up to $10 if you're going to a really high-end Georgian place. But for both cities, there is tons of international options. I'd honestly say that Tbilisi, Georgia has more food options, and in general, I would say that if you find the right places, the food quality can be much higher than here in Vietnam. And then let's quickly talk about shopping. So if you like to shop, you like to online shop, in Georgia, you are going to have some problems. So if you like Amazon, you can get Amazon delivered from America, from Turkey, and I think there's somewhere else. I can't remember because they just added somewhere new. But you can get it delivered through a port forwarding service. which is great, but it costs a lot of money because you have to do it, has to come on a plane and you have to pay a lot of fees. And if it's over $100 off the top of my head, you have to pay tax. It can get very expensive. There's also other options like Temu, which is cheaper, so you can do that. And in Vietnam, there is quite a lot of shopping options, and they have a thing called Shopee. Shopee is basically Amazon, pretty much just as good, and it has tons of stuff. Get it delivered to your door, doesn't cost much money, it is very cheap. Delivery in this country, Vietnam in particular, costs next to nothing. And let's quickly go over convenience before I wrap up, because convenience is very important to me. In Georgia, you can get everything delivered to your door. Everything, you name it. You want flowers, get it delivered. You want groceries, you can get it delivered. Maybe you're sick, you want something delivered from the pharmacy, you can get it delivered. It is extremely convenient. Now, Vietnam is similar. The problem with Vietnam is if you're using an online app such as Grab, which is what they use, it is actually a lot more difficult to find things that you want because it doesn't convert things into English for whatever reason. So you're going to have to try to figure out what it is in Vietnamese. Not as simple, but it is still a very convenient place, especially the city that I live in, exactly where I live. I've got 6 grocery stores surrounding me within 30 seconds walk, where I can get anything I want. Got a gym, 10 seconds walk, beach, 20 seconds walk, ATMs, 20 seconds walk. I've got everything right around me. So for convenience, you're going to be good in both countries. But let's wrap this up. If you don't like persistent heat, you don't like bureaucracy, you just want a life where you kind of get low tax, maybe you want to run a business, or you don't want to deal with visa headaches and moving around all the time, Georgia is definitely 100% the place to go. But if you want to live in Asia and you like the heat, maybe you want the beach, you don't get a beach in Tbilisi, there is a place called Batumi, which you can definitely go. It is the Black Sea though, so it's not as nice. But if you want the heat, you want the lower cost of living, obviously visa problems, this is probably a better option. They are very different countries, and I can't stress that enough. They both do things very well, and then they both do things not so well. So at the end of the day, you need to make up this decision yourself. I have lived in both, and I love both. I'll be quite happy living in both of them. I'm just currently in Vietnam as we speak. And if you want to see what life is like in either Georgia or Nha Trang, Vietnam, I have 2 playlists here, and you can click and go through what life is like from someone that has lived in both of them. Thank you for watching.